was killed right there, because you're seeing fresh, clean hay underneath it everywhere. There's no blood, which doesn't make any sense at all.
Imagine waking up to find your cattle, your livelihood, dead, carved up with surgical precision, and not a drop of blood in sight. What would you think? That's the chilling reality one rancher faced, a discovery so bizarre it caught Joe Rogan's attention on his podcast.
There's a bunch of these they found all over the country, and weirdness, like organs removed. But the weirdest part about it is it's almost always there's no blood.
In this video, we're diving into that haunting story, unpacking what Rogan and his guests uncovered on the Joe Rogan Experience. It's a mystery that's baffled ranchers, investigators, and even UFO buffs for decades. Stick around because this gets wild. Joe Rogan in episode number 1100, The UFO Connection. Joe Rogan isn't just a guy who talks about MMA or cracks jokes. He's got a knack for digging into the weird stuff that keeps us up at night. Back on January 22nd, 2019, in episode number 1100 of the Joe Rogan Experience, he sat down with two heavy hitters, George Knapp, a journalist who's been chasing UFO stories since the 80s, and Jeremy Corbell, a filmmaker obsessed with the unexplained. Together, they tackled a topic that's been whispered about in ranching towns for years, cattle mutilations. And yeah, it's as creepy as it sounds. Rogan's podcast isn't some dry lecture hall. It's a place where big ideas get thrown around over a couple of mics. In this episode, the trio didn't hold back. They zeroed in on these strange cases where cows turn up dead, sliced up like they've been through a sci-fi operating room. No blood, no tracks, just precision cuts and missing parts, eyes, tongues, you name it. Rogan's the kind of host who will ask, wait, how does that even happen? And let his guests run with it.
Hold on for a second. That's where they found it?
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Just what in the fuck can... That is so crazy. Now, did they scan the area to look for another spot where it could have been slaughtered before it was moved to this area?
Well, that's what they concluded, is it had to have been taken somewhere and slaughtered and then brought back. But
Jamie,
who does
that? Can you make that a little larger, please? Can you just zoom in on that? Because that doesn't look very surgical to me. That looks like wolves.
Knapp brought the investigative grit, talking about how these cases stretch back decades, while Corbell leaned hard into the extraterrestrial angle. They weren't just speculating for kicks, they were piecing together a puzzle that stumped everyone from sheriffs to scientists. What's cool about episode number 1100 is how it ties this rancher's chilling discovery to something bigger. Rogan and his guests didn't just stop at the dead cows. They asked if UFOs could be involved. I mean, think about it. Lights in the sky, animals dropping dead with no explanation. Sounds like a movie plot, right? Knapp's got a history with this stuff. He's the guy who broke the Area 51 story wide open.
Since those stories, tens of thousands of people have beaten a path out there to look around in the sky and to see whatever is flying around, UFOs or secret planes. Every major news organization in the world has beaten a path to Area 51's door. A lot of them made fun of me and fun of the whole alien scenario, but they've all been out there. It's one thing to make fun of our stories about Area 51, but you've never been out there sitting in the desert night after night as we've done. You haven't interviewed the witnesses. You haven't dodged the security guards and coyotes and filed the FOIA request. You haven't done it.
Corbell, meanwhile, loves connecting dots between weird phenomena and alien tech. Together, they painted a picture that's equal parts freaky and fascinating, with Rogan steering the ship, keeping it real, but letting the wild ideas breathe. This wasn't some one-off chat either. Rogan's been hooked on the paranormal before. He even had a whole show called Joe Rogan Questions Everything on Sci-Fi back in 2013, digging into conspiracies and mysteries. Episode number 1100 fits right into that vibe, but it's meatier, more focused. They talked about how these mutilations aren't random. There's a pattern, a consistency that's hard to ignore. Over 10,000 cases in the US alone since the 60s, and no one's cracked it. Rogan's reaction? Probably something like, dude, that's insane. And it is. It's why this episode stuck with fans. Reddit threads still buzz about how they went deep on cattle mutilations, linking it to stuff like Skinwalker Ranch and government cover-ups. So, what's the rancher's story got to do with all this? Well, that's where it gets personal. And we're about to find out why this one discovery hit so hard. But hold up, why would a rancher's bad day matter to Joe Rogan and a couple of UFO chasers? Let's zoom in on what this guy actually found. It's the kind of thing that makes you question everything. The rancher's discovery, what he found. Picture this, a rancher's out on his private land. Think wide open fields, maybe Colorado or Kansas, the kind of place where you can see for miles. It's a normal day, cattle grazing, sun beating down. Then bam, 1 minute they're fine, the next they're sprawled out dead. Not just dead though, mutilated. This isn't your typical predator attack, no claw marks, no blood pooling in the dirt. Instead, he finds clean cuts, like someone took a laser to these animals, eyes gone, tongues missing, maybe even a chunk of the face carved off. That's the chilling message this rancher sent out, and it's straight out of a nightmare. This story popped up in a YouTube video tied to Rogan's discussion, likely inspired by real cases, and it's raw. The rancher's words stick with you. It makes me think someone's targeting my cattle on purpose. Can you blame him? He's not seeing wolves or coyotes sneaking around. One account from the video has him driving past a group of cows, all huddled together looking normal. He goes over a hill, comes back an hour later, and one's down, dead with a section of its face removed. No tracks, no signs of a struggle, nothing. It's like something swooped in, did its thing, and vanished. He's got a clear view of his property, open land, no hiding spots, yet whatever did this left no trace. The details are what get you.
It looked initially, superficially like a massive predator had just lain waste to this animal, removed, 60 pounds of meat in 45 minutes, which we don't know of any predator that could have done that. There was no sign of blood. There was no sign of entrails around. It was perfectly clean. Not a drop of blood on the grass.
These aren't messy kills. The cuts are precise, surgical even, like someone, or something, knew exactly what they wanted. Organs are often gone, but there's no blood spill. How does that even work? The rancher's frustration spills out. 1 minute they're grazing, the next they're on the ground. It's like a switch flipped off inside them. He's not alone either. Ranchers in places like Utah and Oregon have echoed this for years. They're losing livestock, sure, but it's more than that. It's the not knowing that eats at them. Is it a person, a test, something from way out there? This one rancher's experience mirrors a bigger trend. In Colorado, officials like Travis Black from Parks and Wildlife have scratched their heads over similar cases saying, "We've got no evidence of wolves, but we don't know what's happening." In Kansas, another rancher in that same video talked about it going on for years, hundreds of miles apart, same eerie pattern. He's convinced it's deliberate, maybe someone trying to push him off his land. It's not traditional, he said. No trauma, no pain, just instant. That's the kicker. It's fast, clean, and quiet. Too quiet. What's wild is how this ties back to Rogan's chat. That rancher's chilling message isn't just a cry for help. It's a spotlight on a mystery that's bigger than his herd. He's not the first to deal with this, and he won't be the last. It's personal for him, though. Every cow lost is a hit to his wallet and his peace of mind. You can almost hear him thinking, "What's next?" as he stares out over his fields. It's the kind of story that makes you wonder, if this can happen out there, what else are we missing? But this isn't just one guy's bad luck. It's part of something way older and weirder. How far back does this go, and why does it keep happening? Let's rewind the clock a bit. Cattle mutilations, a history of the unknown. Cattle mutilations didn't start with our rancher friend. They've been creeping people out for centuries. Let's take it back to the 1600s England under King James I. Farmers woke up to find hundreds of sheep dead, not eaten, but drained. Official records from the time talk about whole expirations of sheep, tallow and blood gone, fleece and meat left behind, no footprints, no mess. Locals whispered about bright lights in the sky, some blaming fireworks, others hinting at something darker. The court investigator wrote, "Nothing is taken but their inward parts," and they never figured it out. Sound familiar? Fast forward to the U.S., where this mystery really took off. By the 1800s, cattle started replacing sheep as the go-to livestock for meat, and guess what? The weird deaths followed. The first big case hit Ohio in 1966. John Keel, a guy who'd later write the Mothman prophecies, dug into it. He found cows dropped from heights in flat fields, sliced with tools no farmer owned. Precise cuts, no blood, no clues. Then came the 70s when things got loud. September 9th, 1967 in Colorado, the Lady incident. A horse named Lady was found with her head and neck skinned, Cuts too clean for any predator. No tracks, just small holes in the ground nearby, like something heavy landed. The local paper went nuts, calling it otherworldly. The 70s were peak mutilation time. In New Mexico, 1976, a cow turned up with suction cup-like marks leading away from it. Tripod shapes, 4 inches wide, disappearing 500 feet out. No tracks, just those dents. 2 years later, Manuel Gomez's 11-month-old bull made headlines. Police found its organs gone, cuts perfect, and the liver and heart mushy, white like peanut butter. Officer Gabriel Valdez said it was freaky, and the FBI stepped in. Their report? The bull's blood was pink, didn't clot, and the hide felt like brittle paper. Radiation experts guessed it was some controlled zap that fried the red cells, but left humans mostly fine, though 7 people at the site got headaches and nausea. Wild, right? Over 10,000 cases have stacked up since the 60s, from Oregon to Kansas. Netflix's Unsolved Mysteries in 2024, Volume 5, Episode 3, showed Oregon ranchers finding the same thing. Organs out. No blood. Fox News hit Colorado's San Luis Valley with footage of carved-up cows, calling it the greatest unsolved crime spree in history. It's not just a U.S. thing either. Similar reports pop up worldwide, from goats in India to horses in Australia. The pattern's always the same: surgical precision, missing parts, and a big fat question mark. What's spooky is how it shifts with meat trends. Back in the 1600s, sheep were king for food, then the mutilations hit them. By the 1800s, cattle took over, and boom, they're the new target. Is something or someone tracking what we eat? Investigators like Chris O'Brien, who wrote Stalking the Herd, say it's been going since at least 1869. No one's pinned it down, not the FBI, not wildlife folks, nobody. Every time they dig, they hit a wall. No predators, no poison, no answers. It's like the universe is playing a game we don't know the rules to. So, history's got a lot to say, but what's actually doing this? Are we talking wolves, weirdos, or little green men? Let's break down the suspects next. Theories explained: predators, cults, or aliens. So we've got dead cows, creepy cuts, and a history that won't quit. What's behind it? People have thrown out all kinds of ideas, and they're worth unpacking because each one's got its fans and its flaws. Let's start with the obvious: predators. Some say wolves or coyotes are sneaking in, taking a bite, and leaving the rest. Makes sense, right? Nature's messy like that. But here's the snag: those clean, laser-like cuts and zero blood don't match a hungry animal's playbook. Colorado wildlife folks like Travis Black have said, no wolf tracks, no evidence, even when they've looked hard. Scavengers might nibble after, sure, but they're not surgeons. Next up, cults or satanic rituals. Picture a bunch of cloaked weirdos with knives chanting under the moon. Spooky, huh? It's a theory that's floated around, especially in the 70s when panic about devil worship was peak vibe. Some ranchers have whispered about it, thinking maybe it's revenge or a twisted prank. Trouble is, there's no proof. No pentagrams, no candle wax, nada. Investigators like the FBI poked around this idea back in New Mexico cases, but it fizzled out. No one's caught a cult red-handed, and honestly, it feels more like a campfire story than a solid lead. Then there's the government angle. Think secret labs, black helicopters, the works. Could they be testing weapons or tracking diseases? It's not crazy. FBI files from the 70s show they took samples, like that bull with the peanut butter organs. Radiation experts even guessed some controlled zap might have hit it, leaving pink blood behind. But why cattle, and why leave them out in the open? If it's Uncle Sam, they're not exactly covering their tracks well. Plus, no whistleblowers spilled the beans, and you'd think someone would have by now. It's juicy, but it's thin on hard facts. Now the big one: extraterrestrials. Yeah, aliens. It's the theory Joe Rogan and his guests leaned into, and it's got legs, or tentacles maybe. UFO sightings often line up with mutilation hotspots, especially along the 37th parallel. Think Colorado, Utah, Kansas, those suction cup marks in New Mexico. The precision cuts no human tool explains. It's the stuff that makes you go, Ranchers have reported lights in the sky right before finding their herds hit. Skeptics scoff, but over 10,000 cases with no earthly answer keep this alive. Are little green men harvesting cow parts for some cosmic grocery list? No one's got a smoking ray gun, but it's the theory that keeps folks talking. Which one's right? That's the million-dollar question, and we're still broke on answers. Each idea's got a piece of the puzzle, but none fit perfectly. Speaking of talking, who's been shouting this mystery from the rooftops? Let's meet the guys who brought it to Rogan's table. They're the real MVPs here. George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, voices of the mystery. If cattle mutilations are a locked box, George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell are the guys with the loudest crowbars. These two joined Joe Rogan on episode number 1100, and they're not just random guests, they're legends in the weird stuff world. Knapp's a journalist out of Las Vegas, the kind who doesn't mess around. Back in 1989, he blew the lid off Area 51 with Bob Lazar's story. Yeah, that Area 51. Since then, he's been knee-deep in UFOs, paranormal vibes, and anything that makes the government squirm. When he talks cattle mutilations, he's got decades of digging to back it up. Knapp's not just a headline chaser, he's methodical. On Rogan's show, he probably laid out the facts, thousands of cases, no blood, no tracks, and a pattern that's too weird to shrug off. He's interviewed ranchers, cops, even scientists who've scratched their heads over this. His take? It's not wolves or pranksters. He's hinted at bigger forces, maybe tied to those UFOs he's chased forever. Knapp's the guy who connects the dots without sounding like he's lost it, and Rogan trusts him to bring the goods. Then there's Jeremy Corbell, the filmmaker with a flair for the dramatic, but in a good way. He's younger, edgier, and all about visuals. You've seen his docs like Hunt for the Skinwalker, right? That's his wheelhouse, taking mysteries like mutilations and putting them on screen with a punch. On the podcast, he likely pushed the alien angle hard, tying it to stuff he's filmed at places like Skinwalker Ranch, where weird lights and dead livestock go hand in hand. Corbell's got this energy. He's not afraid to say, "Dude, this is extraterrestrial," and back it with creepy evidence. Together, they're a 1-2 punch. Knapp's the seasoned vet with the files, Corbell's the hype man with the footage. Rogan's the perfect host for it. He lets them roll, asks the right questions, and keeps it chill. They didn't just chat about one rancher's bad day, they framed it as part of a cosmic riddle. Knapp might have dropped historical nuggets like those FBI reports, while Corbell added flair with tales of glowing orbs over pastures. It's why episode number 1100 hit so hard. 2 pros, 1 mic, and a topic that's pure dynamite. But it's not all UFOs and podcasts. How does this mess hit the people living it? Let's get real with the ranchers for a sec. Impact on ranchers, a struggle beyond the pasture. For ranchers, this isn't some cool mystery to debate over beers. It's a gut punch. Imagine pouring your life into raising cattle, only to find them carved up overnight. That's not just a dead animal, it's money gone, hours wasted, and a big "what now?" staring you down. The rancher from our story said it best. It's hard enough making a living, but when your cattle suddenly expire under mysterious circumstances, it's a huge blow to your business and a life gets taken. That's raw and it's real. Economically, it's brutal. Each cow's worth hundreds, sometimes thousands, depending on the market. Losing a few or dozens can tank a small operation. In Oregon, ranchers told Unsolved Mysteries in 2024 they're losing sleep over it. Not just cash. Emotionally, it's worse. These folks know their herds, every moo, every quirk. Finding one gutted with no explanation isn't just creepy, it's personal. That Kansas rancher who thought someone's targeting him? He's not paranoid, he's scared. "It feels like us ranchers are being pushed out," he said. Who wouldn't feel that way? And the help? Barely there. Cops come, shrug, maybe blame a bear. Wildlife teams say, "No tracks, no clue." The FBI's poked around, but they've got bigger fish, or cows, to fry. Ranchers are left hanging with no answers and more questions. Some even beef up security, cameras, dogs. But whatever's doing this doesn't care. It's fast, silent, and gone. That helplessness, it's why this mystery stings so bad for them. Think it's just an American thing? Wait till you hear how this pops up across the globe. It's bigger than you'd guess. Similar cases, strange livestock deaths. Worldwide, cattle mutilations aren't just a U.S. headache, they're a global ghost story. Take India 2002, farmers in Uttar Pradesh started finding goats and sheep sliced up, same deal. No blood, clean cuts. Locals freaked, blaming a chupacabra or some unknown beast. No one caught it, but the cases mirrored Colorado's playbook. Organs gone, no tracks. Fast forward to 2019, Australia. Horses near Melbourne turned up with tongues and eyes removed, precision cuts again. Farmers there were like, this isn't dingoes, and vets agreed. No natural explanation fit. Back in Europe, the UK's got its own history. The 1980s saw sheep in Wales hit with the same eerie vibe. Bloodless, carved, no culprits. Farmers pointed at UFOs after spotting lights nearby, just like those 1600s reports. South America's in on it too. Argentina's had cattle cases since the 90s, often tied to lucis malus, or bad lights hovering over fields. In 2002, a rash of mutilations there sparked protests. Ranchers demanded answers but got crickets instead. It's like the world's playing the same creepy tune, different instruments. What's nuts is the consistency. Thousands of miles apart, decades between, yet it's always surgical, always quiet. In Canada, 1990s, Alberta had bison mutilated, big tough animals yet no signs of a fight. Even moose in Sweden, 2010s, showed up with ears and lips cut off, no blood in the snow. Experts there scratch their heads, same as everywhere else. It's not just cows, it's livestock, period, and it's been global forever. Why's it matter? Because it's not one freak incident. It's a pattern stretching across continents, cultures, and centuries. Whether it's a farmer in India or a rancher in Oregon, they're all asking, what's hitting us? No borders stop it, no techs caught it. It's the kind of thing that makes you wonder if we're all in the same weird boat just paddling blind.